welcome to Coffee with Developers. Today we have here Michael Bromley. He is co-founder and CTO of Vendure, which is a headless commerce platform based in Vienna, Austria. Welcome, Michael. How are you doing?
Thanks, Mark. Thanks for having me. I'm doing very well, thank you. I'm looking forward to having an interesting, wide-ranging chat with you this morning.
My first question to you would be, what was your first experience in tech? When did you start getting, also like year-wise, when was this?
Okay, year-wise, I had to reveal my age now, don't I? So I think that one of the earliest things I can remember in tech was like back when I used to be into playing PC games as a kid. And we used to play Duke Nukem 3D, if anyone remembers that. And we got we got into building our own maps. And I think that was like the first time I got kind of a little bit behind the scenes on something on a computer. But then a little bit later, I guess around mid to late 90s, I bought a PC magazine and it came with a CD on the cover like they used to in the old days.
Yeah.
And it had a copy of Borland C++ Builder on it. And I installed that, and it had a little tutorial in the back to make like a very simple like CLI Hello World program. And I think that was like the first program I wrote.
Yeah, I think my first experience was also something that came on a CD, like QBasic, something in a magazine, same as you. So this C++ thing took you eventually to the web world. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey from that getting into where you're now tech-wise?
Okay, so back then as well, my dad got a PC at his office and it had a 56K modem, the one that makes the funny noises when it connects. And yeah, I got into just like browsing websites, and we were using Netscape Navigator at the time, which was like the big browser. It was the Chrome of its day. And I discovered that it came with something called Netscape Composer, which is basically a simple HTML editor. So I started messing about with that, and I realized, wow, you can just change the text and you can build a website this way. So that's how I started building websites. And then later on, my parents at the time had this company selling art materials online. And I said, well, I can build a website. So, that was my first website job as a teenager. I put together this like brochureware website, just static pictures, tables with price lists.
All right. And when did you start creating Vendure? When was this?
So it's about 4 years ago, coming up to 4.5 years ago.
All right. Now that we are talking about Vendure, can you tell us a little bit about the platform, what it does?
Yeah, it's a e-commerce framework. So that means it's a developer tool aimed at developers who want to build custom e-commerce applications. Most of the viewers will probably know about something like Shopify. It's in the same general kind of area as Shopify, but it's more like if you have slightly more sophisticated requirements, you need more custom business use cases to be supported, then you have to custom build. And this is where something like Vendure comes in. It allows you to build everything to the exact specifications that the merchant requires.
That's very cool. I used it once. We actually have a live stream together where we try it out together. For me, it was a pretty seamless experience. I liked it. So let's talk about this. You co-founded this company. How was this for you? Or what are the biggest challenges and how did you experience it?
Yeah, so as a bit of background, I mentioned I've been working on this for like 4 years. And my idea has always been to build it as an open source project, but then build a company around it. That was the idea from the start. And my idea has been things like open core. So the core is MIT open source licensed, but then I've been working on more enterprise, I guess, pro level plugins. And I intend to make a marketplace around that. Also support and so on. So I've been, I was just doing it all on my own, and I had this kind of indie hacker ethos. But then at a certain point, all the different jobs that I had to do became a bit overwhelming. You know, there's the actual development itself, like writing the code, dealing with issues on GitHub, merging and reviewing PRs, managing the community on Slack, which is now like coming up to 2,000 people, running all the social media accounts, speaking to people, business development, tech partnerships, and you know, the list goes on and on. So I kind of got to the point at the end of last year where it was just getting kind of difficult to keep on top of everything, and the pace would eventually slow down as more and more of these tasks pile up. So it just so happens, like around the start of the year, I was contacted by someone who is now my co-founder over LinkedIn, of all places. I'm not like a huge LinkedIn guy, but he happened to contact me over LinkedIn. And at first it was, you know, the idea of co-founding a company wasn't really on the table. It was more like their developers had been looking for a new platform. They found Vendure, they evaluated it, and from the technical side, they loved it. They want to use it. But the problem was when they took it to merchants and tried to like convince them to build their next project on this platform, they were like, Vendure, what is this? Who builds it? And then at that point they had to say, well, it's just an open source project built by some random guy in Vienna who you've never heard of. So it's a big ask to just trust some relatively unknown open source project. So that's the problem they had. The developers want to use it, but then they had this problem like actually selling it. So that's when David approached me and we came up with this idea of let's build a company around it, co-found a company. And then we immediately get some other people behind the wheel, some shoulders behind the wheel, pushing forward, not just the tech side, which I'm doing, but also the business development, the marketing, and all these other tasks, that managing the finances and you know, spreadsheets and all this kind of stuff that needs doing as part of any business. And so that's the foundation of it, and that's how we started.
Wow, that's quite a journey. And how was it for you giving up some of that control?
Yeah, that was tough. I got to admit, you know, like anyone who's built a project for a long time, especially if you've got this kind of indie hacker ethos that like, yeah, I'm in control of everything, responsible for everything, I can do everything. It is tough to give up control, but ultimately, if you want to build something bigger than yourself, you need to be able to delegate. It's tough to give it up, but I think it's necessary.
And would you say creating the company eventually helped you boost the project in general?
Oh yeah, for sure. Having someone who can just take care of that side and is also like really experienced in that side of things is like a massive weight off my shoulders, and I can concentrate on the thing that I actually like doing, which is product development, roadmap, and coding, and managing the community, and kind of DevRel stuff like what we're doing now, I guess.
So you built this e-commerce platform, Vendure, and what fascinates you about e-commerce?
You know, e-commerce is interesting because it's one of the pillars of the internet, right? It's one of the ways that it's one of the engines of the internet economy. You've got advertising. Advertising is promoting ultimately some e-commerce business. Someone's trying to sell something. It's really complex because you're dealing with financial transactions, tax laws, differences across different jurisdictions. And there's so many different permutations on the typical e-commerce store. But really, the reason I'm doing it is because, like I mentioned back at the start of the interview, that my parents had this art supplies company. I built this website. So I carried on building this website over the last like more than 15 years. And I actually started the Vendure project because we needed a new platform. I had written this kind of monstrosity in PHP and MySQL, my first big programming project. And it's kept us going for like 15 years and it works, but it was, you know, I would not like to show you the code. It's things like functions.php, which is like a 5,000 line file of just global functions. And, you know, I only discovered unit testing like towards the end of the project. And you try and implement one feature and something breaks in a total other area. after I evaluated the whole open source e-commerce ecosystem, I was not satisfied. And I was shocked that there was nothing really out there for Node.js, TypeScript, the kind of tools and workflows that I'd become used to using as a developer. There's a hole here, I'm going to fill it. That's the reason why I'm like in this area, really, because I'm trying to solve the problems of this company that I've been working for a long time, or working with.
You mentioned Node.js and TypeScript. So would you say developer experience is one of the focuses, or is a focus for Vendure?
Definitely, yeah. So when I was evaluating existing solutions, the developer experience can be a bit rough using some of these other tools. So yeah, I want to build something which, you can do npx, create. 5 minutes later, you've got a fully scaffolded, well, you've tried it out, right? You've got a fully scaffolded server to work with locally. I'm building it for developers like me.
So this might be a tough question, but I got to ask it anyways. Is there something you would change about Vendure?
There are lots of things I would change about it, Vendure. You can find them all in the GitHub issues and the roadmap. Many of the, a lot of the things, there's features that we need to add. Coming up in the next major version, we need to re-architect a few things. And I recently ran into an issue that's like an edge case, you could say, when you're doing certain tax calculations. I think, we could have designed that a bit differently. And now I'm going to try and think about how we can solve this. But these are things that you can't. There's so many complexities to a system like this. You can't think of them up from. You have to go through the pain of learning the hard way.
So now we talked a little bit about Vendure and all of that, but I want to know a little bit about yourself, Michael. So how do you manage work-life balance? You mentioned a little bit before we recorded now about music, traveling, and books. Can you tell us a little bit about that? You play music yourself?
Yeah, I do. Look. All right, here's one of my guitars.
Nice.
So I actually used to be a professional musician before I was a developer, and now I do it just for fun. Now and then I've got a couple of guitars here. Yeah, that's one thing I like to do. I listen to a lot of music, but I'm getting older now, so this is the typical thing that happens: is your music taste just gets stuck at some point, maybe in your early to mid 20s. All our parents' generations, they just like Genesis and the Beatles. Well, I've kind of reached that point with the music I like. But I still listen to it though, but maybe I need to improve my music discovery process.
Yeah, I'm also stuck in 2 decades, 70s and 80s, and everything below and above. Well, below is okay, above gets worse with time.
And it's just noise now, isn't it?
Yeah, background noise for me. No offense to any listeners. All right, you said also you read books. What type of books do you like reading?
I mean, actually, I listen to books. I listen to audiobooks when I'm traveling and stuff. So right now I'm listening to one called Money Men. It's about Wirecard, which is a German, Austrian big financial company that was doing lots of fraud. I kind of realized recently that I really like these kind of corporate fraud type nonfiction books. I'm also into fiction, so I've been recently listening to the Expanse series, which there's the TV show that I've not seen, but I think I'm on book number 6 now, which is a sci-fi thing set in
cool.
Our solar system and beyond.
Okay, and one last question before I let you go. What is the best book you can recommend for anyone to read?
That's really hard. But the one that immediately pops to mind is one that left the biggest impression on me in the last few years, which was the Three Body Problem, and that whole trilogy. It's a sci-fi trilogy by a Chinese author, Cixin Liu, and that is kind of the most expansive in scope book that I've ever read. It basically goes from now until the end of the universe. and it has some extremely mind-blowing concepts. There's this description of what it's like to exist in 4-dimensional space,
Whoa.
which comes back to me many times because the way he describes it is just so clear. It's got like hundreds of amazing concepts in that series, so I recommend that.
Thanks a lot for that. Also, thanks a lot for your time, Michael, and for the insights into your life and Vendure a little bit. And yes, thanks a lot, and see you around.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.